a discussion on writing while depressed. I always like to open with the disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. This is not medical advice. If at any point, either now, hopefully you won't have it now, but now or in the future, you find yourself in a mental illness crisis, please seek professional help. I also like to disclaim that I will be discussing things that can be triggering for some people, so if you need to get up and leave, by all means do that. I won't be offended. And as always, too, different things work for different people. This is just a toolbox of ideas for you to stash away, and maybe something will click with you and maybe not, and that's okay. And I do invite, like, by all means, speak up. I like interactive stuff, so I'm totally fine with people chiming in. As far as, so I'm not a medical professional, why do I do this? Well, I have been, over the years, diagnosed with major depressive disorder, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, and suicidal ideation. I've been hospitalized numerous times since I was a teenager, both inpatient and what's called a partial hospitalization program, which I like to think of as camp for crazy people. You go to a hospital Monday through Friday, usually for like 2 to 3 weeks, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and you have very intensive group therapy all day long with a bunch of people. I have attempted suicide in the past, obviously not successfully. I have had issues with self-harm, and this is an ongoing thing since childhood. The first time that I ever held a knife to my wrist, I was 8 years old. This is a compulsion for me. It has nothing to do, well, I don't say nothing, but there are times when, yes, I do actually want my life to end. But on a base level, every day, there is just this compulsion in my head of just not wanting to be here anymore and thinking about ways in a room like how I can kill myself and you know, being on a train and thinking I could jump off, or being on a bridge, just walking over a bridge, normal, nothing is going wrong in my life, but gee, I could jump off this bridge kind of thing. So I'm at a constant war with myself of trying to stop those thoughts. And on top of all that, you know, I do go through these extremely depressed periods where I can't get out of bed, where I wake up crying. And again, this is for no reason. There's different types of depression. So, you know, I have what's called clinical depression. There is also situational depression, which is, you know, when a loved one passes away, or a relationship ends, or you lose a job or something like that. And that type of depression, it can be severe. It can require professional help, but it typically passes eventually with time. Whereas clinical depression, in most cases, there is no cure for it. You can kind of roller coaster it where you have, you know, different levels of it throughout your life, but it's always there and it's always going to be there. So that's where I'm coming from of why I do this, because I am a writer and I've always been a writer. And there is this constant struggle and constant battle of trying to not kill myself, trying to manage the roller coaster of my emotions, trying to manage all of the day-to-day life things that you have to do of, you know, job, housework, school, family, what, you know, whatever the things are that are on your plate. And then also trying to manage the creative life and producing creatively. If people don't mind, I do want to read something that I wrote during one of my depressive episodes. My purpose for reading this is twofold. One, to give you an idea of what it feels like when I'm in one of those states, but also to show that, okay, yes, this is a terribly depressing thing, but I wrote it. I did some writing while I was in that state, And it was cathartic to do that. And it kept that muscle flexed, which is kind of the point of this whole discussion, is that find ways to flex the muscle. If you injure yourself in a physical way, there are still things you can do to try to keep yourself healthy. And the same goes for the mental and the creative aspects. You know, having a mental illness, it is an illness. So there are ways to kind of keep yourself going, even if you're not really going. So this doesn't have a title or anything. It was just kind of a stream of consciousness thing that I wrote. I don't even remember what year I wrote it, but the sentiment works for pretty much every depressive episode I've ever had. I have depression. I've had it my whole life. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it, but I have it. I have depression, which means I spend 90% of my time alone, because when you have depression, people treat you like it's contagious. I have depression, which means you can't just show up at my house and ask me to coffee or lunch or dinner. I won't be showered or even dressed. My life has no meaning, and each day the smallest of tasks is a struggle. I have depression, which means I eat too much or not enough. Some days I eat my feelings away. Other days I remember that eating keeps me alive, and why would I want to do that? I have depression, which means I spend 50% of my time in bed trying to think of a reason to get out of it. I have depression. It makes you uncomfortable. I make you uncomfortable because I talk about it. It's so nice and easy to like or repost something positive about mental illness on Facebook. It's not so nice and easy when someone you love stands in front of you screaming that they want to die. I have depression. This means that strangers care about me more than the people in my life. I have depression. It's a mental illness, but it ravages my body too. The migraines, the insomnia, the physical pain from the panic attacks, the wear and tear of inactivity from hours spent in bed, not to mention the self-harm. I wear scars inside and out. I have depression. I have good days and bad days. Mostly, I don't let you see the bad, not nearly as often as it happens. But even on the good days, the illness is there waiting underneath everything, whispering that its time will come. I have depression. The smallest and simplest of gestures can help me when I'm struggling. I don't need you to move mountains. I just need you to brush the dust from my eyes. I have depression, which means everyone hopes I will be someone else's problem until there's no one left and I am standing alone crying for help. I have depression, which means people will say I am overreacting. To them, this will feel out of the blue, but the signs have been there building up all along. I am so patient, so very patient. I have waited decades for someone to care about me. I hope, always, that someone will prove me wrong. I have depression, and someday it will kill me. And what I mean when I say that is that there is always that danger, no matter what, no matter how good things could get. I could have a best-selling book. I could, have tons of money in the bank account and get a house and, have whatever things that people consider markers of success, but that danger is always going to be there. And unless the scientific community does come up with some kind of miracle cure, it is always going to be there. So I think it's important for me and for my own safety and my own health to have that reminder in the back of my mind that this could kill me, and don't get lax about your care. Whether that's care from someone else, meaning a professional, or just little things to care for myself. So as far as the writing goes, and again, this is just my own personal take on it. I personally think that the most important and also the hardest lesson to learn in regards to writing while depressed is forgiveness. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for not writing today. Forgive yourself for not writing for a week. Forgive yourself for not writing for a month, even a year. It's okay. It will be there when you get through whatever it is you are going through. Your health is the most important thing. And if that deadline that either someone else has put on you or you've put on yourself is upsetting you, then that's not helping you. So it is okay to take that time away, to take time off, to say that I need a break. Whether you're just telling yourself that, or, and I'm not saying it's easy because I know it's not easy, but if someone is expecting something from you, it's okay to go to that person. You don't have to tell them you're depressed if that's not something that you're out about. You can say, I'm going through something right now, or I'm sick, which is not a lie. I have something, you know, I'm sick right now and I can't, you know, something has happened, something has come up in my life. Ask for an extension. Ask if you can come back to it later. And sometimes you might have to give up doing some things and miss out on some opportunities. But the thing is, I promise you, I guarantee you, there will be more opportunities. You will have more chances to do something else. I cannot tell you how many times in my life I have been, you know, a ball crying mess thinking I've messed everything up. I'm never going to get published again. I'm never going to be at something like this again. And here I am, you know, and I've had 4 stories published over the last few months, you know, so you can do it again. The right people will be understanding. And if they're not understanding, they're not the right people, and it's okay to excise them from your life. So that's one of my bits of advice that I think is the most important one, is the forgiveness, forgiving yourself. Don't worry about what other people are saying or thinking or feeling, because that is noise compared to what you need for yourself. And you are the best judge of what you need for yourself. Some people, when they're depressed, need to be surrounded by other people and need other people to be taking care of them. Some people need to be alone. And you figure that out for yourself, what is going to work best for you. And don't let other, you know, there's a lot of, especially in the day of like Facebook and whatnot, there's a lot of like, oh, you just need to go out in the sunshine, you know. Yeah. Go hiking, you know. Exercise, eat right. You know, if you eat right, you will feel better, you know, everything will be okay.
Yoga?
Right, right.
There's one
Colonics really miracles.
Yeah.
One that I got really mad at that showed a picture of a wetlands and said, "This is medicine."
Yeah, I've
right?
seen
and
that.
And then
Yeah.
that said, "This is shit."
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a wetland. It's full of mosquitoes and alligators. It wants to kill you too. And this is the stuff that will keep you out of there.
Yep.
After my marriage collapsed and my aunt was diagnosed with cancer the same week,
Jesus.
the only thing that kept me from completely collapsing was Celexa. And it was a bridge. It kept me going
Right.
until I could handle it on my own.
Right.
I could have dealt with one or the other. I
Right.
couldn't deal with both.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was a medicine. I was sick. I needed it. I will never scorn anybody who needs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a chemical imbalance. in the
Exactly.
brain.
Yep.
It's a
Exactly.
medical condition, just like an orthopedic condition.
Yep.
Just like when I had my gallbladder out, it's the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Same thing.
And we can never discount what leaving ourselves untreated does to others.
Oh yeah.
The reason I'm on serious meds and will never go off them again right now is because after my grandmother passed, my dad went, I got to a point where I was screaming at Robin. Like, I had no idea that rage was an anxiety attack. I had no clue. And all I knew was I was fucking up. And I couldn't make it stop. And someone gave me a pill and said, "This will make you stop fucking up." I've been eating that shit like Pez. Hell yes. Hell yes. You know, it's okay. All right. So does this conflict with your spiritual worldview? Incorporate it into alchemy and move on.
So, well, speaking of the illness part, and we talked about this last night, but and I apologize for being a little more on the illness side of things right now, but it does relate. I am what doctors call medication resistant. And that doesn't mean I'm resistant to taking it. I've taken all kinds of medication. My body just doesn't, it does nothing. None of it has worked. So I'm a rare case in that regard. The thing that I have come to learn to tell myself, and it really actually has helped once I was able to mentally absorb it, and I'm borrowing this from AA, but it works, is this too shall pass. And so now when I'm going through a major episode where I'm just crying and crying and crying and crying, I say to myself, it will pass. It might take a month. It might take 2 or 3 months, but it will pass. And so far, knock on wood, I've been right every time it has passed. So, sometimes that's enough to get you through. And you just have to accept that, yes, I feel like shit right now, but it's not going to last forever. Eventually, the brain chemicals will do their somersaults and it'll go back to, the way it was, where I can be a little more even-keeled and not crying all the time and whatnot. But getting back to the writing, there are tips and tricks that can get you through. So one thing that I did, and I recommend you do this when you are in a more positive state of mind, is I wrote a letter to myself. And you can do this on a computer if you want, or you can handwrite it and put it in an envelope. But I wrote a letter to myself, I think it was like 5 years ago or so, where I forgave myself for how, I literally said, I forgive you for how you're feeling right now. I forgive you for hating yourself right now. I love you in this moment. I love you. You don't love you, but I love you. And I just wrote this, nice, not overly sappy, but this encouraging, here, this is physical proof that you are in a good place and you can be in that good place again. And I've kept that letter on my computer. And every now and then, when I need it, I open it up and I read it to myself. And it really does help. Now, your letter doesn't have to say that, tailor it to whatever would work for you. If you, another thing you could do maybe, because this is something that helps some people, instead of a letter, make a list of the things that you have accomplished in your life so far. And go back, and if you're feeling down, feeling like you're a failure, or feeling like you might, fail at something coming up in the future, look at that list of things that you have done and remind yourself, hey, I did that, and that was really cool. I can do cool things, and have successes. So a future or a list. Another thing that you can do is kind of like the thing that I read is do journaling. I'm assuming here, I write fiction is generally what I write. But, sometimes if you're in a really dark place, if you're in a really bad place, the imagination sort of, there's like a shadow over the imagination, and it can be hard to come up with characters or universes or, plot lines or whatever. So do some journaling, write some diary entries. I did a thing for one exercise I did for a while was I did a series called I Remember. And I would literally just write 500 or 1,000 words of, I remember this thing from my childhood, or I remember this, whatever, and just sort of recall different things, or you can do journaling, about how you're feeling. Anything. Just pick whatever subject might appeal to you and just do a little, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be, I think when you take away the pressure of showing things to people, having it something just for yourself. It takes that pressure off, and it just kind of, you stop worrying about, does this make sense, or how perfect is it, or is the sentence structure, and blah, blah, blah. Again, the point is flexing the muscle. Just keep the muscle flexed. A lot of us here are into the fan fiction thing. Another thing that I do if I'm really, really, really in a bad way and just like can't imagine doing anything productive at all is I will go on Tumblr and I will ask people, give me one word prompts so I can write some smutty fan fiction drabbles. Because it makes me happy to write smutty fan fiction drabbles. Even if I'm in a terrible mood, it can make me happy to do that. And it's a distraction, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's just fan fiction. And it has the added bonus too of giving other people pleasure, and giving them a little bit of pleasure can give you a little bit, and it creates this cycle.
I was just about to say, it makes me happy when you write smutty fanfiction dramas.
I'm glad to hear that. Another thing that can help is structure. And this is something from a clinical perspective that is taught over and over again in the times that I've been hospitalized in the partial hospitalization program. So to give you an example, in the partial hospitalization program, like I said, it's Monday through Friday. So come Friday, the therapists are really worried about you because you have Saturday and Sunday all by yourself, unsupervised, without structure, they're concerned about, for people who have addictive behaviors, that they will fall back into, maybe using drugs and alcohol. If you have self-harm behaviors, that you'll go back into the self-harm over the weekend. And so what they have us do on Fridays is they actually print out a sheet with a clock face, and every hour is broken up on the clock face. They give us the blank sheet, and for 2 days, they give us 2 days worth, Saturday and Sunday worth. And we are supposed to write out in each hour things that we are supposed to do in each hour. Obviously, sleep is included in there. But, go for a walk, eat breakfast, take a shower. I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to go to bed at that time, so on and so forth. And that structure helps you get through the weekend without falling back onto bad behaviors. Now, obviously, I'm not in the hospital anymore, and I haven't done the partial hospitalization since, I think 2013 was the last time I did it. But I adapted that structure, not to that degree, because, once you reach a certain point, you don't need it every hour like that. But I adapted a weekly structure that I've applied to myself, and it sounds very mundane, but when you have severe depression, you get distracted very easily, and you fall into the negative patterns very easy. So it's good to have kind of a guideline to keep you going. So for myself, my Monday through, Sunday through whatever, Monday through whatever, however you want to look at it, day by day guide is Monday, I take care of my animals because I have a zoo pretty much at home, and it's a project, and I do my trash and I do my recycling. Tuesday, I do my laundry. Wednesday, I do my housework and my compost. Thursday is an exercise day and my Krav Maga class. Friday, I do Circlet work. Saturdays, I work on fan fiction and or writing, interchangeable, whichever. Sundays, I do food prep. Now, do I manage to do all of these things every day? Not always, necessarily, because some days you're hanging out with people, or some days you have an appointment, or you have errands you have to run, or whatever. But it's a good guide to keep me focused. And you can do the same thing with your writing. Create some kind of structure that works for you for your writing. For me, having Saturdays set aside is a good structure for me. But for you, it could be, I do have a goal of an hour every day, or 10 minutes every day. I mean, whatever it is that's going to work for you, without putting too much pressure on yourself. It could be, and if you're in a severe depression, it could be something as simple as I write one sentence a day, or just one paragraph a day, something like that. It doesn't have to be anything really overwhelming. And if you really, really, really can't get yourself to write something, it's going to sound counterintuitive, but consume media. And this does apply to writing, because if you're consuming, especially if you're consuming fiction media, if you're watching a movie or you're watching a TV show, guess what? That's writing. And if you pay attention to it, I'm not saying you have to sit there and like take notes or whatever, but pay attention to how they structure the storyline. How do they write the characters? How do the characters interact with each other? It can almost kind of be like background homework for your mind to chew on and then come back to later on when you're in a better state. So, don't feel guilty or admonishing yourself if you end up spending your depressed day binge watching a television show. That's okay, because it's still writing and you're still getting something. Or if you read, if you spend the day reading, whatever you're doing, it's you're consuming something that has to do with writing.
Right, you're filling the hopper of stories.
Exactly,
somehow. Yeah.
exactly.
I had a thing to say about the structuring
Yep.
too. One of the tips that I learned back when, especially when you have the sort of depression and anxiety mixed together about not doing things, and you beat yourself up for not doing the laundry, and then you beat yourself up for not doing the housework, and you beat yourself up for not doing this. And what it basically says is, if you've got 7 things to do in 7 days, you are not allowed to beat yourself up every day for not doing 7 things.
Right.
If Monday's laundry day and you don't do it, you only beat yourself up on Monday about laundry. On Tuesday, that's not laundry day, so
Right.
now you forget about it.
Right.
And you only concentrate on the thing that's due that day.
That
kind
day,
of thing.
yeah.
And that way, and that for general sort of upkeep of life, that you will drive yourself nuts if every day you're like, oh my God, I need to do these
Right.
8 million things. And it's like, no, every day is not for everything.
Right.
You have your specific days, because you get yourself into a negative spiral where you're like, oh, and then I didn't do the thing. And then tomorrow I didn't do the thing. And then Wednesday I didn't do the thing. And I did the other thing. And I didn't, and it like, and then you're even less likely to do the thing, because then you
Right.
feel negative about it. And that,
Well, that's where the forgiveness comes
right.
in.
So you
Forgive
have
yourself.
to, you have to
let it
forgive
go.
yourself.
Let
Yeah,
it go.
You have to let it go, and you're only allowed to feel guilty about it for one day and not for the
Right.
whole week. And then by not feeling as bad about not doing everything all the time, then you're more likely to you actually accomplish more, because you feel less guilty, and then you feel less bad about yourself, and you feel less depressed and less anxious. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Gee, I was doing that to myself. No one was doing that to me but me. Yeah.
And when you, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
Just recently, I started marking things on my to-do list as the Dayenu target. And for those of you who may not know the term, Dayenu means it would have been enough, and it's an expression of thankfulness, right? It would have been enough if God had only taken us out of Egypt. It would have been enough if God had only parted the Red Sea, that sort of thing. And so I would take my to-do list and put a mark next to one thing. And I said, if I don't do anything else today but that, that is enough for today.
Right.
Yep.
And it's remarkable how little mental tricks like that, even with our sophisticated brains who understand that these are little mental tricks,
Right.
how nice it is to look at it and say, but I did do that.
Yeah.
And I promised myself that would be enough if I did that today.
Yeah. Acknowledge the things that you've done. Reward yourself for the things you've done. Yes.
Also, never forget that you're smarter than your brain. You can outsmart your own brain, and it is for some of us necessary.
So, in defense of hiking, and all exercise, I think, at least for me, the purpose is to move beyond a place of thought. So if I am exhausted enough, then I will stop thinking about the things that are bothering me. Or I will have thought about them for the 8 hours of the hike, and by the end, I will have figured something out, or I will be so exhausted that I literally cannot think about anything other than my body. And so that is why to do exercise.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I love being in nature, and that's a huge part of it too, but I think it's really the other stuff that comes into it. And other thing I wanted to mention is negative people. For instance, moving back to the Northeast has been a very trying experience. I have some family members who are just extremely, extremely negative, who I can't really avoid, because that would be problematic, but who are just like very anti-writing, anti-degrees, anti-education, anti-anything I do really. So avoiding them is not easy.
You might not be able to avoid. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
We should get together because my in-laws think this is all a big scam and y'all are here to take my money, so.
Oh my God.
I was told.
Oh no.
I was told I was going to get a bunch of
I
money.
know, you may have heard, I'm sorry, not the case.
I mean, to give an example of something like that, I mean, my mother and I, completely at odds, you know, especially bringing it back to the depression. I mean, she thinks that all of this stuff is like, you just get over stuff.
Right.
And you don't talk about stuff like that and, you know, whatnot. I mean, she thinks me being in the hospital and being on medication and whatnot is just absolutely ridiculous, you know. So when I talk to my mother, we just don't talk about this stuff. If I'm feeling depressed, I don't tell her about it. And
My
you know,
family doesn't work that way.
oh,
Brings it up every time.
really?
It does not stop. I usually hang up. That's all.
Oh,
So for those of us who are on meds, but we have people in our lives who genuinely think all we need to do is kiss a frog, may I recommend, since they're going to be aggressive about what's working for you, and you do have the excuse that you've got a mental thing going on, accuse them of being Scientologists.
Solid.
And stick to it
Solid.
as long as they give you shit about your meds. I do have at least 2 people in my life that anytime they're like, that's poison, you shouldn't be doing that, you should get in touch with your inner body, you know.
How's Xenu these days?
Yeah! I'm just like, you're a Scientologist, only Scientologists think that way and you're in on it. And it's
My changes
just,
are fine.
yeah, their positions are just as ridiculous as this, so please use your diagnoses in your favor and to be stupid back at them.
Clearwater by any chance?
I'm in Florida, we got a lot of Scientologists.
Oh my god.
so my last bit of advice, which actually someone mentioned earlier, I forget what it was for, but having an accountability partner in regards to the writing, and this can be someone online. I remember back for a while, the really popular thing was doing Google Chat writer group type things, where a bunch of us would, you know, say we're all going to get on at this time and we're going to write for an hour and, you know, then touch base with each other after an hour to talk about what we wrote or, you know, that kind of thing. You know, the key is to make sure that you don't feel guilty if you don't do too much or if you can't do it that day or whatnot. But if it is something that is fun for you, if interacting with people in that way is a way that's not going to add to your anxiety or depression, then that can be a good way to get some writing done too, in a fun kind of environment, you know, that's slightly less stressful. So I think that's about all I had. Any questions or anything?
I think just thank you for reading that piece of yours.
Oh,
That was
sure.
really powerful.
Thank you.